is truly a privilege to be joined today and to join all of you in Columbus and really be surrounded by Jewish history and, more importantly, by a Jewish presence in this audience and this community and our very esteemed guests. There is so much that we want to discuss this evening, and I wanted to begin by asking, this is the Holocaust Remembrance Night. Share with us your story.
Share my story?
Share your story.
Well, what I have to tell you before I speak about my story is that I can still remember my sister and I, 10, 11 years old, were going to America. We finally got passage to go to America. We were on a ship called the Sobieski. They only spoke Polish, and here were two little girls trying to make the 10-day trip. Anyways, by the time we got to New York, everybody on the ship was jumping up and down and happy. And I said, why is everybody so happy? They said, you see the Statue of Liberty? You'll never hurt here. You'll never find hate here. You'll be able to be a Jew in this country. That's the last time I heard that. And I felt safe. But now with what's going on, I feel like I'm going through another Holocaust. And it's very painful.
Fran, tell us a little bit about your first memory that something was turning in your childhood, that all of a sudden your Jewish identity was not the same as everybody else around you in the Gentile world, but your first memory that your Jewish identity came with stakes, it came with baggage, it came with responsibilities that are going to reshape the trajectory of your life.
Well, the first experience I had was when I was 4 years old and my father was taken away. And I couldn't understand why my father was taken away, but I lived in an area where there was a long street and there was a truck, and they picked up all the Jewish men and took them away. So after that, I couldn't understand I asked my mom, I said, what's so bad about being Jewish? Why do they take our dad away? So she couldn't explain to me. She says, everything's going to be okay. But that's the first time that I understood that there was something being Jewish. But my mother...
Do you think she believed that at the time when she said everything's going to be okay?
She always told us everything's going to be okay. She wanted to believe it.
She wanted to believe
it. She never wanted us to be, afraid. No. She took care of us. She never, and I know she used to tell me, forget, don't remember so much. She didn't want me to remember what we went through. She did not. But for some reason...
So remarkable to be sitting here at a Holocaust memorial event and you recalling your mother telling you, forget, it's too...
Right, it's too hard.
It's too hard.
It's too hard.
What in that childhood, in those moments, what was the scariest moment where you felt like, I cannot believe that this is life, that this is real, that this is the world?
Right. I think the one I mentioned is my mom, my sister, and I. My name was Fanny Silverstein, and Giselle Silverstein. So, and my mother was Jeanne. My father was Simon. So after my father was taken away, we had to go shopping. So one thing I remember is when we went shopping for food, we were walking back home and the sirens were blowing. And my mother grabbed us and put us into the metro. We had to go down the metro and sleep on the floor till the sirens were over. And then we finally came back up. And when we came back up, we went to 154 Rue Oberkampf, our apartment. The Nazis had been there, and they've taken everything we owned, everything. There was nothing left. And that's when I saw my mother sit and cry. And I said, what are we going to do, Mama? What are we going to do? Like I said before, my mother had a lot of good friends, and the one friend, we decided to go to stay with her. Should I tell them a story about that?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, her name was Beth Biederman. She had a little boy, Armand, and my mother, she decided that, we'd go over there and see if we couldn't stay with her because we had no place to live. So we walked over there, and as we walked down the hall, the concierge says, you can't stay here. You can't stay here. You see this building right here? There's 3 floors of apartments. The Jews have all left. Bert is the only one across the courtyard, and she's going to be leaving soon because the Nazis are coming any day. So I know that my mother and Bert, they begged, we have 3 little children here. We need to have a place to live. We need just someplace for a few days. So she finally said, okay. She said, you know what? Go to the top floor. In the last apartment, there's a big closet. Stay there during the day. And at night, maybe you can go over to Bert's apartment and sleep there. Now, my mother had to wear Jewish Star David. I was young enough, I didn't have to wear it. So I was the only one that could go out and shop. Because if you wore the Star David, the French citizen would spit on you for blaming us for the war. So I have to tell you that we did stay on the top floor in the apartment, and we were there for a few weeks. I don't remember. All I know is that in front was a barber shop and a grocery store. So I was the one that used to go get the groceries. And they knew we were hiding. They were trying to protect us. So here we are, going in and out, and like children playing. And then one day I'm upstairs with Bert and my mom, and all of a sudden I could hear the Nazis marching down. And she looked at the window and she realized, oh my God, and the kids are playing in the street. The barber came out and he said, come to Papa, pretending to be their father. So they went with him, and my mom looked out. She says, well, maybe they'll survive, but we're never going to survive in this closet. So all I can remember is my mother, there was a pillowcase. She took the pillow and stuffed me in the pillowcase to hide me. And she just said, not one word. We're going to sit here and not say one word. So here I am in the closet with Bert and my mother, and we can hear the Nazis coming in, and the concierge says, they're all gone. There's nobody here. All the Jews are gone. They're all gone. They're all gone. They're all gone. They said, well, we have to check every floor. She said, the only one is Bert, but she's leaving soon too. Everybody's gone. So they told the concierge they would have to check every apartment. The concierge realized that if they found us, they would take her also. So she did not want to deal with that. She says, no, they're gone. Well, they wouldn't listen. They went from one apartment to another apartment, all the way to the 3rd floor. And by the time they got up there, I heard the concierge talking to them. She had brought them some food and some wine, and they were sitting on the steps, talking and laughing and everything, and we're sitting in the closet. And because of that, they forgot to check the last apartment because of the concierge. So otherwise, that was the closest thing that, that's when my mother realized that we needed help. She couldn't do this. She couldn't take care of us. We needed help. That's when I believe the highest, there was highest, there was Sauver les Enfants, and they contacted them to see, what do we do with our children? We can't live here anymore. That's when my sister and I and our mom, we went to foster care. And the foster care were non-Jews. They were getting paid well. And the lady from the highest would take us on the train to there, and they changed our names. Our name was not Fanny Silberstein. It was going to be Françoise, and my sister was Giselle. It was okay. I had an uncle called Plot, P-L-O-T. So I was Françoise Plot, and my sister was Giselle Plot.
Because you needed an identity was clear that you were not
right.
Jewish.
They were not Jewish. So anyways, we lived with these non-Jewish people, and it was very, very difficult because there was never enough food, and any extra food, they gave it to their children. So it was a really bad place to be, and my sister and I were so frightened all the time, because we heard that the Nazis were in the town coming around. So we were there for a while, and it was so bad that the lady from the highest comes back. She says, I'm taking you to a better place. She takes us to another family. Their name was Lance. And same situation. We were hidden children. We couldn't go to school or do anything. the trouble is that in that city, there was always bombs dropping all the time. So one of the neighbors had a big basement, like a shelter. So we would go hide there sometimes. But most of the time, the bombs would drop and the sun would blow at the same time. They hardly had enough time to go hide. So in this place was really, really very, very, very bad, because we knew any time they would come and take us. And so one day, sure enough, we could hear the bombs. We ran into the basement. The basement was wall-to-wall people. Everyone, in the basement were hiding down there. And my sister was amazing. I would be in the corner of the room screaming, and she would hold on to me. Now, we lived down there.
Tell the audience, remind the audience what your sister's name was.
Giselle.
Giselle.
Her name's Gloria. And she held on to me. She held on to me while I was screaming and crying. It was so frightening because we could hear the bombs dropping. And finally, and when it stopped, we came out of the basement and we could see how many homes had been bombed to the ground. But you know what? After a while, my sister and I, well, this is the way we live. This is life. We didn't know any better. We didn't realize that, but we knew that the problem is that we were Jews. That we knew.
Well, how did you, when you say that we always knew we were Jews, where did that come from? From the people who were chasing you, or from?
My mother always talked about it.
What did she tell you?
My mother spoke Yiddish.
Yeah.
She was very good. She spoke Yiddish. She grew up in Poland, and they all spoke Yiddish. And we didn't do much, but she let us know we were Jews.
Did she want you to one day be able?
Well, she, like I said, after the war, and I went back to live with my mother came to get me. I ended up going to a sanitarium because the people, the highest, realized that I was sick and I had tuberculosis. So they sent me to a convent and a sanitarium, and the nuns were there. And the nuns were wonderful, wonderful. But you know what? I became a very good Catholic girl because it was something I could hold on to. And finally, I got some good food. And my sister was able to stay next door in a convent. So it was a safe place to be.
And you're wearing a cross this time?
Oh yeah, and then the nuns were wonderful. I became a very good little Catholic girl. I did. And it was fine. And sometimes I would see people walking through like Nazis, and I was afraid, But the nuns always told me, don't worry. They won't know you're a Jew. You don't look Jewish. Now the boys, they might take them away. That's what we lived under. But I have to tell you that I was in that home when the sanitarium, when the war was over, and everybody was jumping up and down. They were happy, the war is over, and I thought, I'll see my mother, I'll see my father, I'll see my sister. I thought things will go back to normal. Well, my mother came to get us and took us back to Paris. You understand? We had nothing. The Jewish organization brought us furniture and to fill. But my mother, I didn't realize, was very sick from hiding in the woods. She was hiding in the woods the whole time. And she was very sick. And she would lay in bed, and I'd say, I'm going to go to church with Nicole. She'd say, go wherever you can pray to God. God is everywhere. But someday you'll be able to be a Jew.
Just pause right there, because that's such a powerful line for this moment, that your mother would say, someday you'll be able
to be a Jew.
To be a Jew. Mm-hmm. What a powerful line from your mother, and that's really what kind of took you, and you held on to that.
I held on to it.
For so much of your life, that we're living in this moment to be a Jew. And this moment is also, for the first time, so scary. And if you'll allow me, I want to bring in our other panelist to come in, Keren.
Hi.
who really has an incredible story to begin to start to weave together this incredible narrative that we have together. Because, Keren, you obviously did not live during the time of the Holocaust, but you went through really almost at the center of the largest and most serious massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And I was wondering if you could begin by taking us through what you experienced, because as I was listening to your story, there were so many haunting images that parallel your own experiences. So if you'll please share with the audience what happened with you and your family on October 7th.
Okay. So it started on Shabbat Simchat Torah. We were planning on eating by my husband's cousin, which she lives 10 minutes away. So we prepared food, and we brought all the food to her cousin right before Shabbat. It was such an amazing Friday night, so much Torah and dancing with the Torah. Even walked at midnight back home. Didn't even think that the next morning would be a hour. And at 5:45, my husband went to the early minyan. So I was alone in the bedroom. Our bedroom is a safe room, and at 6:30 in the morning, the rocket attack began. And
A rocket attack, the sound is piercing.
Piercing. I hate her voice, and it makes you jump every time. You hear it, and sometimes you have a second to close the window, and even not a second. It really depends, from a second to 15 seconds, until the rocket comes. And 6:30 in the morning, I hear a massive attack. I hear a siren, which is called the Tzeva Adom, nonstop for like 20 minutes. As I said, I was alone. My bedroom is a safe room. And when you wake up, so you're weak. You don't have your energy. And I had to close the door of the safe room, and I had to lock it, but I was too weak. I was, as I said, as you mentioned, as the rabbi mentioned, I was in my beginning of my 7th month of pregnancy. And I ran back to my bed and just waiting for my husband to come back from davening.
At this point, how serious did you think it was?
Something was odd. I felt something not good.
But you've heard sirens before.
I heard, but not like that.
Okay.
Not like that. It was massive. It was one after the other. Rockets are falling on top of my head with the Iron Dome. Not normal. My husband came after 20 minutes. He was like really nervous. He was sweating. He didn't look good, and I was asking what happened. And just at that time, I started to hearing shooting outside my window.
Gunfire.
Gunfire. A lot of gunfires. And I told my husband straight, like right away. I told him, go get the phone and see what's gonna happen. See what's going on outside, because it was just very scary. I was living in front of the police station for 2 years. I have never ever heard gun shooting live. So my husband comes back. He sees there's a massive terror attack, right?
Yes.
In Sderot. He didn't tell me about the Nova and the other places. He didn't want to scare me. And I told him, well, what are we going to do? What do we do? We don't have any food. Like, you're thinking about what are we doing? So we're right away switched our mind to being survival and put everything we can on the door. We closed ourselves. We took the massive knives that we have. We took, because we didn't have a gun, and just waiting in our safe room. My husband also took the handle, and he just held it, that no one should open it. We're just waiting to happen. We're waiting, and about like half an hour after this all started, the police station was captured by the terrorist people, by the Hamas. And we started hearing massive bombing. How do you say rimonim? Rimonim. Grenades.
Grenades, yeah.
They started taking all the weapons from the police station and throwing it out on the street. Whoever they saw, it was soldiers, citizens, kids. There was one child that I can't forget her scream. And we didn't know what to do. They said, we heard from the outside of the window a radio, walkie-talkie of Israeli walkie-talkie. I told my husband, go to the door and see if there's anything that we could help or what's going on. Like, we didn't know, no one knew anything. So he ran to the door. I was in the safe room, and he asked them, what's going on? And they're saying, don't get out of the house, stay in your safe room, no one knows what's going on. They were still shooting outside, gun shooting, and rockets on top of us, and grenades, and just a lot of chaos. And by this time, my husband saw on the hole in the door, one of the soldiers was his friend who was wounded. So he opened the door, we gave him one first treatment, and that was the time. It was like an hour and a half where soldiers came to our house with the ID that we should see that they're not terrorist Hamas.
Say that. Explain that again. Meaning, how did you ascertain who was on what side?
We were asking for IDs outside the door, so on the hole. We told them put it on the hole, so we should see that it's them. And also to hear that they're speaking Hebrew. We were very on that. So because it was like from 0 to 100, none of the soldiers had like things on them, or water or sugar or something to wake them up. So we had to bring all our water to them and all our sugar, whatever sugar we can find. And that was an hour and a half that I said, okay, we're safe and we're going to get out of here and we're okay. And after that, the special force of the police just left. They left to a different mission. And it was the quietest, like the scariest quiet I have ever experienced. And by this time, and we still hear gun shooting. By this time, I felt like I wasn't gonna get out of the safe room alive. And I took my husband to sit on the bed, and I told him I want to do Kabbalat Or Malchut Shamayim, which I think it's every Jew know what
to say the Shema.
To say the Shema Yisrael before you die.
Meaning, at that moment, in that eerie quiet, you were confronting and said, I may not live past this.
Yeah.
And what did you do? You said Shema.
We said together Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and it's the hardest thing to do is to wait for your death. I think it's the hardest thing. There's no time. The time is no longer an issue. It's just waiting, and the waiting also is infecting your body. Your body feels that it's tired, that my heartbeat is going up, and I don't have any appetite, and I have a baby inside of me. I have a life inside of me. How am I taking care? How am I dealing with life and death? It was very hard. That was very, very hard. It was the hardest hours that you can imagine. After a few hours of quiet, my husband went to get me water from the sink in the kitchen. And when he went, he started seeing the handle of the door starting to open. I didn't know this until 2 weeks after, because he was protecting me and my baby. But he said that he saw the handle open, trying to open, and he looked at the hole in the door, and he heard whispering in Arabic, but he didn't see them because they were probably on their knees or something. And I don't know how they couldn't open the door. It's really a miracle. I don't know how. And after a few minutes, it was like 7 minutes, all of this, we heard shooting, and they probably went away. They escaped from the building. My husband came to the safe room, and I asked him what happened. He didn't tell me. He looked really bad. And he was like, well, if anything happens to me, just go under the bed and stay there. And I was like, well, how am I going to get under the bed? I'm pregnant. It's not like, you're not even making sense. It's not logical. So it was like, when you're in survival, you just don't make any, you don't talk in a sense.
Can I jump in for 1 second? The parallels of the hiding and the confrontation of death, and feeling the footsteps of people who are trying to murder you because you are Jews, and to be bound together by a story nearly a century apart, but still
That's right.
is so haunting.
I never thought it would ever happen again.
It's so haunting to hear
What's
in
going
this
on?
world.
It's terrible.
And I'm curious for you, you went through a incident that also, you knew people were trying to kill you at the time. You knew the Nazis were trying to murder the Jewish people. When you emerged from this, why did you decide to build a Jewish life? You come to America, your mother told you you could someday be a Jew. Why build a Jewish life after that experience?
Well, it took me a while. When my sister and I came over, we lived with an aunt and uncle, and they were not prepared to take care of 2 little broken girls. So within a few months, I was sent out to be adopted. So no, my life in this country really was difficult because no one understood what we'd gone through or cared. So it was difficult. And then finally we moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I met the love of my life, my husband. I was 16 years old. I met Dan Greenberg. And that's when my life really started after that. I mean, we married, I was 18, he was 20. And I said to him, you know what, Dan, I had a miserable childhood. If you can't make me happy, I'm out of here. So, I mean, we have 4 wonderful children, and all of them are very involved with the Holocaust and Judaism. And you probably know my oldest son, Steve Greenberg, Rabbi Steve Greenberg. And my second son was with the Justice Department for 10 years, and he prosecuted the skinheads. So maybe I survived for a reason. But I can tell you that every day I'm lucky that I'm here at this age. I'm lucky. My husband passed away a few years ago, but what was hard is losing my sister, because I don't have anyone to relate to anymore. But I'm a survivor. I'm going to keep doing it, and my kids, I have wonderful children. So I thank God that I've made it to this age, so I can talk about it.
Did you ever have a moment of doubt of whether or not you would want to continue living the Jewish life when you came to America?
Well, there was a time when I was studying Catholicism, and I was in this one sanitarium, and I went for confession. I still know my French confession by heart. And I told the priest, I'm Jewish. He says, well, we have to fix that. I said, we're going to baptize you. We're going to take it all. We'll make you, So to me, I thought it was fine because I don't want to be different. I was the only Jew there. But they wrote to my uncle, and they said, no, you can't baptize her. But I felt left out because I wanted to be like the rest of them. I don't want to be different, So I never understood what a Jew is like. All I knew about Jews is that the Germans not want to kill you, and they took everything away. Why do I want to be Jewish? No, I didn't understand it. It took me a while, but not till...
How did you find the answer to that
well,
question?
you know what? It's funny. I was saying that when I came to this country, it was not easy. It's not easy, but I was still going to church at lunchtime in Wheeling, West Virginia. I still felt comfortable going to church because I knew what to do there. So there was a young girl, her name was Toby. She says, "Aren't you really Jewish?" I said, "I don't know." She says, "Come to synagogue with me. Right across the street is a synagogue. It's a Hebrew school, and you come see what it's like." So I went in there, and I saw the Rabbi Wagner. He says, "Who are you?" I said, "Rabbi, how do you pray here? You don't get on your knees. You don't cross yourself. No organ. It's noisy. How do you pray here?" He says, "Where did you come from?" That's the answer I got. That was the problem. My sister and I had to learn on our own. And not, like I said, once we moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, then I went to a high school, Taylor, I said it was 70% Jews. Then I felt maybe being Jewish is not so bad. But you understand, I went to a high school where it was like a Bexley High School, and everybody had everything. And I didn't want them to know who I really was. No, I didn't want to tell them my story. They would say to me, "Oh, did you go to Pigalle? Did you wear French clothes?" "Oh, yeah. I wouldn't tell them because I wanted to be accepted as one of them. And then years later, they heard my story, and my friends called me and said, "Fran, we didn't know you, did we?" I said, "No, you didn't know me," but that was okay. That was okay. I did want to be reminded. I wanted to be an all-American girl. So anyways, but like I said, I live my life at my age. I'm not worried at my age, whatever happens. But my children and my grandchildren and your children, your grandchildren, what's going to happen to them? Do they have to go through what I went through? No. I thought they said the statue, it was never going to happen again. Well, that's not true. It's happening right now.
That is extraordinarily haunting, and I wanted to kind of move back to Keren and maybe ask you, when this was over, so to speak, it's still not over, but when the immediate attack was over, you had to be displaced from your home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did you ever think about leaving Israel and building your Jewish life in America and say, "This is too much. This is too much trauma. It's too scary"?
Never. I never leave my home. Me and my husband chose to live in Sderot as a shlichut. How do you say shlichut?
Meaning you came to live in Israel on an educational mission. Mm-hmm. That's what brought you there.
Yeah.
To teach about Jewish life and Jewish practice. That's what brought you there.
That's what brought us there. And of course that attack changed a lot of things. But we all live with traumas. I think Jewish people all are traumatized from Jewish events. But we live through it. We have a strong community. We're together. We have a lot of help. My baby, our baby, me and my husband's baby.
Tell the audience what you named your child.
We named him Ziv Israel, as he's a Ziv, he's a light to our life, to our home, to our generation, and he's a survivor. And I feel like that's the right thing to do, is to go back and live there, because if no one's going to live in those places, the Gaza could just go and build themselves even more. So we come and try to push them away.
And tell me about when you were in the displaced, you were in a hotel, I think it was like the Ramada?
Yeah.
And you're with other people in your community. Were people talking with themselves? Is it despair? Is it hope? What is the feeling living in a, I don't want to call it a DP camp, that's from, the first story, but you're displaced and you have whole communities there. What are the conversations at night between families about
It was very frustrating, very hard. There wasn't an end. There was always like a date that they said in the hotel, okay, and this date you're going back, and then another week, and another 2 weeks, and another month, and another 5 months. So it was very, as I said in the story, time is no longer relevant. It's very difficult for families that they have children in school, kindergarten, even me and another few women in the hotel had to give birth we went from the hotel to the hospital, which is not a fun experience. And also, staying in a hotel, one room with 5, 6 kids isn't normal for a long time.
And were you surprised when you saw the media and the conversation around the world turn so quickly against Israel?
Can you explain more?
Meaning, it was this year on October 7th that we had the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And we're standing here just a few months later, and there are anti-Israel protests around the entire world. It's almost unimaginable that we would be at this moment. If you would have asked me, in the hours after, the days after, there was upswelling. I remember, 1 or 2 statements that were inappropriate. I was shocked. But I'm curious for you, when you see people who are so anti-Israel, does it hurt you? Does it pain you?
Of course that pains me. I feel like we're going back to the time of a Holocaust, that everyone hates us. The hate is coming back, and it hurts. That you have to fight to be a Jew, and I feel like, and even though I feel like it unites us so much stronger. I saw it in the hotel. I saw it till today. There's so many things that people help as a Jew to a Jew, and I have never seen such a chesed. Like,
I mean, it's incredible. In a night like tonight,
right.
where the Columbus Jewish community comes out, the entire community really is a reminder of that kind of familial support that being Jewish is all about. I wanted to turn to you and ask a little bit about when you were building your life, how did you manage that the traumas of the Holocaust did not prevent you from building a joyful life?
Well, I married a Jewish man. His family, even though they kept kosher, they weren't that observant. So, I mean, we live in an area, in Pittsburgh that, like I said, everybody around me was Jewish. So I felt comfortable. I still wouldn't admit to everyone that I was a Jew. It took me a while. It took me to finally agree. But after I met my husband, and he was Jewish, and he understood the way I felt, and then for some reason, unfortunately, we were married 2 months. He ended up in Korea, which wasn't so great. But while he was there, he decided to daven and pray, and because I was expecting, and we had Stephen, and my husband decided then we needed to go back to be Jews and learn and study. And Dan became more observant because of our son. And one thing I can tell you is that for a long time, I didn't keep kosher. I didn't do a lot of things at the beginning. We were married. But when Stephen was 12, 13 years old, he came home and he says, "I'm not eating your food anymore." Mm-hmm. "What's wrong with my food?" He said, "It's not kosher." I said, "Well, what do you mean? What are you going to do?" He said, "You're going to throw everything out." So we had a little bit, but he really became more observant. And Rabbi Velinsky, I don't know if you remember Rabbi Velinsky. Rabbi Velinsky took 4 or 5 boys from Tiferet Israel and studied with them, and they're all rabbis today. So, my son Stephen, when he was little, he was a very bright little boy. He wanted to know why I didn't have parents. Where are my grandparents? And I would tell him. Now, my in-laws were upset with that. They said, you don't want to scare the child. I said, no, he wants to know. He wants to know what happened to his grandparents. And as he grew up, that was part of him. He always wanted to know what happened. And so I feel that my children, all of them, have the feeling that they were like when I spoke at Simon Wiesenthal. Mark said, my middle son, the attorney, says, he said, my mother is not the only Holocaust survivor, because if she would have survived, I wouldn't be here, my brothers wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be, so we're all Holocaust survivors. That's what he said, and it's true.
Wow, that is so incredibly moving. I'm curious what you would tell each other about your experiences, and what would you each say brings you the most comfort, having both survived a very real trauma in your lives?
Well, I was a child, so to me, when I came over, and my aunt and uncle, they were sort of, she was religious, and she was trying to teach me about kosher, not kosher, all that stuff, and I said it wasn't a good place. But she was upset because we kept messing up her silverware. Now, I don't know if you remember, but years ago, they used to bury them in dirt.
Okay.
So the neighbor next door said, Mrs. Toder, why are you growing silver all over your yard? Those stupid girls, they kept messing up my kitchen. So you understand, that's all I knew about Judaism is the kosher. I didn't, and we lived in Kennisburg, Pennsylvania, so it wasn't a lot of, But I can tell you that it took me a long time to feel that I want to be a Jew again. It took me a long time.
Just repeat that, because I think there's a heaviness to that. It took you a long time to want to be a Jew again.
Yes. I know I have a cousin that through the people I lived with, she says, Fran, you used to get on your knees every night. I said, I did? She says, yeah, you did. It was part of me. It was something that I needed, and there was nothing else to hold on to.
Do you remember the moment where you wanted, you almost like, was it an epiphany? I want to be a Jew again. Do you remember, is there like a moment, was there a prayer, an incident, or a feeling?
I think when my sister and I and our husbands, I forget what year it was, we went to Israel. That did it. Going to Israel, I felt like a Jew again. Going to Israel, really. And my mother is buried in Paris, France. Her friends. And when Stephen went to Israel the first time, he was just in high school. He decided to go to Paris and look for my mother's grave. He found it. He found the cemetery, and there was one part was non-Jews, and there was a rabbi there, and the rabbi took him to show him where his grandmother was laying. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that till we went there. There's more than one person in that same grave. But the rabbi starts to daven. He says, this is my grandmother. I've never met her. I'm going to pray for my grandmother, whatever, and I'll still pay you. But this is my grandmother. And Stephen found the cemetery. So we've been there. It's very hard. But, when we went back to Paris, we went back to the apartment we lived in. We went back where we lived with our husbands. We went back. And it was very difficult to go back and see where we live. But other than my mother's buried there, I have no love for France or Paris. I don't have any love for that, to ever live there again.
Keren, tell us a little bit about what you've noticed post-October 7th. Has there been an awakening in Israel about almost the purpose of this country? Because what I find so fascinating about our generation is that young kids who are growing up now, they know very few less and less Holocaust survivors. And we talk a lot about that in our community. We talk a lot in our community about how we need to bear witness and hear these stories. What we talk less so in our community is witnesses who remember, and they're usually one and the same, the founding of the State of Israel and what that meant for the Jewish people. And that we are a generation who have less and less people who actually remember this founding and why we have a Jewish home and a Jewish state. And I'm curious for you, what you have seen in Israel and in Israeli society, do you feel like there has been an awakening of sorts about the very purpose of the State of Israel?
A lot. I feel it a lot. There has been so many groups that still coming to Israel, volunteering. If it's, I don't know, in the fields that the Otef Aza couldn't go back, so many volunteers are coming and picking potatoes and picking lettuce, and just that it shouldn't get ruined. And it's amazing. People just leave their jobs and come, and I haven't seen that, I think, since October. I haven't seen that so massive, the massive volunteering. And I feel that there is more conscience.
Yeah, intentionality, conscience, yeah.
Of Israel and being a Jew, and especially in this time. This time in Israel now, everyone has a flag on their car. Everyone is proud in being a Jew. It's a really, it unites it. It unites it. Yeah.
This has been an incredible privilege and opportunity, really, to hear from.
When I
from
speak,
both of
I've
you.
been speaking for many, many years, like 18 years. At first, I had a hard time, but I know that it was important that I spoke. And when I speak to schools or churches, the children come up and hug me and want it. And I have boxes and boxes of letters from the children. We are your witnesses. We'll never forget you. So, it makes me feel like I'm doing something right. And I've been doing it for a long time, speaking.
1,000%.
And when I can't speak anymore, my children will speak for me.
And in this moment, there's so much of our resources and attention is being focused on fighting anti-Semitism, to the point where we can sometimes forget that, the purpose of Judaism is not to fight anti-Semitism. We fight anti-Semitism so we can focus on the purpose of Judaism. And I'm wondering if each of you, in closing, can kind of reflect on what your Jewish identity at its core means to you. And maybe we'll begin with Keren, just at its core, and then we'll close with.
Can we explain?
What does Yiddishkeit, being a Jew, mean to you? Like, what does that evoke? What is that?
I think it means, first of all, with my story, it means that you could really die for Kiddush Hashem. Really...
Kiddush Hashem, being to sanctify, to die because of that identity, being ready.
Yeah. I think Jewish people sacrifice a lot for Jewish people, and I feel it mostly like in Sderot, like people. There's still rockets falling, and I feel like it's not muvan me'elav.
Self-understood.
Self-understood, that people continue and being there, and that's what I feel most of my Judaism over there, to go back and to show that we're not afraid, and that we continue, and that we bring more babies out of to the Jewish world, and that's my own victory for this
Beautiful.
war. So,
What is the question?
What does being a Jew mean to you?
What does it mean to me? I'm very proud to be a Jew. Today I'm very proud to be a Jew. That I've made it to this, and that I have these children that all follow Judaism. You know, a few years ago I was invited by Senator Brown to go to Washington, D.C. And I went to Washington, D.C. from Columbus, Ohio. I was the only one that was sent. And I met the French president, and I was in the House Representative. And Stephen, who lives in Boston, said, Mom, I'm coming to accompany you. And I sat in the House Representatives as a Jew. I said, Mom and Dad, can you believe I'm here? I mean, you know, I'm just proud of, you know, like I said, sometimes I feel like I've lived two different lives. I did. I lived two different lives. But, you know, thank God I've made it to this, and I'm very lucky. I'm one of the, really, that I've been able to live this age and still remember everything.
Absolutely beautiful.
I feel also that we have our death and life is so in mishkal. It has a lot of mishkal.
Weight, significance.
It has a lot of weight. We don't just die and we don't just live. We have a responsibility as being a Jew. It's I'm sure that death for you wasn't easy, as experiencing death and life is even stronger. I feel that that's a Jewish thing, that life is stronger.
There was a great Jewish historian who one time described the Jewish people as the ever-dying people. Yet I think a conversation like today with Fran and with Keren, we are the ever-living, ever-rebuilding, ever-building again, ever-hoping, ever-imagining, recommitting, rebuilding, and holding on to the Netzach Yisrael Lo Yishaker, the eternity of our unfolding story. And I wanted to almost close and bookend with the word that Rabbi Goldman had opened up with, which is the word Eicha. The word Eicha, which is a scream, which is a shriek, which is pain. So the Midrash says that the word Eicha, which is the pain and the confrontation with everything that's lost, can also be read as Ayeka. Where are you? Where are you? Where is your Yiddishkeit? Where is your Jewish story? Where is your life going to be? And taking from that horrors of Eicha that you both experienced, that the Jewish people have experienced, and transforming that into in Ayeka, where are you? A question that we answer with our families, with our values, with our Jewish pride, with our Jewish commitment, is how we transform our individual horrors into collective triumph, that we should be and remain the ever-living, ever-rebuilding people. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.